They were like, these are bad girls. It was even more depressing because the supervisors were like bullies. The warders don't really care for the girls. They're saying that they aren't trained to deal with children.
In Jamaica, children in state care are facing a crisis. Across the island, children are suffering in detention centers and police lockups. Many of these facilities are overcrowded and staffed by overworked and poorly trained officers. These children are physically, emotionally, and sexually abused. They are mocked and neglected, and in some cases, even beaten and raped. Because Jamaican society has written them off as bad, their stories are often ignored. Just last year, Vanessa Wynn hanged herself with her bedsheet in an adult remand center after her cries for help were ignored for 7 months. In 2009, Jamaica witnessed the extreme result of this neglect when a fire erupted in a locked dormitory at the Armadale facility and burnt 7 teenage girls alive when their caretakers failed to open their dormitory door. It took their death to shed light on the years of abuse and neglect that these children had endured. However, after a lengthy commission of inquiry, the government has taken little or no action on the recommendations made to fix the problem. Will it take another Armadale to remind the government of its responsibilities? The sad reality is that very little has changed. Meet Candine. She is a former ward of the state and a survivor of the Armadale fire. This is her story.
When I first went to Armadale, I was 16. It was pretty. Armadale was beautiful until I stepped inside the dormitory and the girls were practically naked, beating down the place, and then they gave me this dress that smelled awful. It was dirty, and they offered me supper, and it was porridge, and it was cold, and they didn't give me any spoon or anything to eat with it. So I had to eat my hands, and they assigned me to a bed, and there was another girl, and the bed was really small. The supervisors were like bullies. They rough you, they push you, they talk to you abusively. As a new girl, I wasn't allowed to go outside. It was part of the rules to stay inside for at least 2 weeks. My whole time there, I never went to school because I was on lockdown for the entire time there. I didn't eat for an entire week because of the food. It was awful there. It wasn't cooked properly, and it always came cold. Even the tea was cold. And the plates and the cups were put beside the buckets. The buckets are the buckets that we use to pass feces. The night of the fire, the dorm just went dark, and I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe. I stood there in the fire with my skin burning, and I was jumping, I was crying, my skin was biting. It was like a million needles sticking through your body, your head, your face, your hands. My face was completely black. I looked at my hands, it was black and white, and I realized that it was the skin hanging down and the white was the flesh beneath the skin. After the fire, I went to the hospital. It was even more depressing because everybody, the nurses were treating us, they were like, these are bad girls, and their attitude towards us, they couldn't open up to them. And sometimes you just want somebody to talk to, but nobody was available to listen. It was really, really depressing. Depression to a max. After I left the hospital, I went right back to another government facility. The last time I was at Diamond Crest, I don't know how different it is. The warders don't really care for the girls. They're saying that they aren't trained to deal with children. They're directing their anger at us. They talk to us violently. It's obvious that they don't want to be there. They don't want to care for children. They want to deal with adults that are criminals, because that's how they talk to us and deal with us. And they treat us like prisoners, so we act like prisoners, so we don't end up being rehabilitated. For the girls that were at Armadale, I like to see them get some help. We're back out on the streets depending on guys to take care of us, selling our bodies. You know, nobody has no qualification or anything, nobody got that. Come out back into the streets, and then nobody calls to see if you actually got home or anything like that. Basically, the girls need help, like to go to school. Just show that you care. For the institutions now, I think they should implement like people who actually care and want to make a change in these girls' lives. Employ people who want a different for the girls that they're dealing with. Even in the the government, they need to employ somebody who wants to deal with people, who want to change individuals, who want to help them, who want to be parents for them, because most of us end up there because of our parents were treating us or anything. And that's basically what they want, a little attention, somebody to talk to as a parent, a sister, a little bit of love.
4 years after Armadale, the victims and their families remain uncompensated. Our government continues to place many children who have committed no crimes in remand and correctional facilities across the island. And children that do come into conflict with the law, their humanity is degraded and little rehabilitation takes place.
At Jamaicans for Justice, we find this wholly unacceptable. We are calling on the ministers with direct responsibility for these children to do more than simply talk and implement real actions. As Jamaicans, we are demanding that the state changes the way they treat these children. We are calling on you ministers to implement the following.
Properly trained correctional officers who understand the basic human rights of child wards as outlined in the UN Convention on Rights of the Child and the Beijing Rules.
Separation of children from adults. As a practice, housing children alongside adults is not only inappropriate and damaging, it is illegal. Before demanding Jamaican children to remain within the boundaries of the law, Jamaican leaders must first demonstrate the capacity to do so themselves.
An end to lockdowns. As recently as last year, juvenile facilities were given free rein to administer lockdowns as they wished, with no limitations, no protocols, no standards for protecting the human rights of our child wards. In 2012, children were on lockdown for up to 5 weeks. The Armadale report said, quote, "Lockdown as a punishment is inherently unjust. It must be discontinued." Will it take another Armadale to remind the government that children have rights too? It's time for less talk and more action.
Separation of children based on category. Lumping together children who have committed violent offenses, children with behavioral issues, and children simply in need of care and protection is a patently damaging practice. It ensures that no individual receives the attention or care that they require. It is unacceptable that the current government response to cries for help is as cold and indifferent as indiscriminate containment and isolation.
Clear and definite measures and a timeline for change. After years of inaction, vague promises no longer work. Broad reform can only realistically be achieved through enacting specific progressive measures. It is high time that Jamaican children witness accountability and progress in action. Minister Hannah and Minister Bunting, we will be expecting you to rise to the occasion. It is time to lift up, not lock up, our children.